Hello, I am Michelle.
And I am Natalie the Red.
And we are Forcify Entertainment. Well, today we are going to give you our thoughts on the Gina Carano interview with Ben Shapiro, the Sunday special that aired yesterday. And as of the time of this recording, it currently has over 1.7 million views on YouTube. So a pretty popular video that has gone out, and I'm sure it's just going to keep accumulating views as the time goes by, considering that's in 24 hours. But we want to talk about this because I know I am, and I know Natalie is too. We are really big Gina Carano fans. If you can't tell from behind us, big fans of The Mandalorian.
There she is.
Yeah, they're
so
Gina.
Just look right above my finger.
Yeah, big fans of The Mandalorian. I know many of you have even joined in on our discussions when we did the weekly discussions of The Mandalorian this past year. And I didn't know tons about Gina until The Mandalorian Season 1 came out. And she won me over with her portrayal as Cara Dune. And just kind of the strength that she brought to this character that I think only Gina could really bring because it's just Gina.
Yeah.
So she really won me over. And of course, I guess over a week and a half ago now, we know that she was, I guess, they're not going to renew her contract is the way it would be worded, even though technically that's just she was fired. That's another way of saying that. But from Lucasfilm, and I was disappointed. I know you were disappointed.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people clearly were really disappointed with that decision. But Gina had been kind of silent, but now we heard a lot from different reporters and different people. But now we finally have heard from Gina herself. So we just kind of took notes on some things. I've watched the interview now twice, and if you haven't watched it, I truly recommend you going to Ben Shapiro, just YouTube Ben Shapiro, and you will see the Sunday special with Gina Carano, the interview. And
can I just say, I think it's very important sometimes when people, have a Twitter mob after them, for example, and articles written kind of sometimes, a lot of times, the good old media, taking things out of context. It's good to hear directly from the person.
It's always good.
Kind of the best source, really, what they were thinking and what their frame of mind is when maybe they posted something.
And I will say that too. Anyone who follows us on Twitter, or I think even you probably picked that up on certain episodes we've done, I really can't stand cancel culture. I can't stand it. It is unmerciful. There is no grace in it. It literally seeks to kill and destroy. That's all it tries to do. It doesn't allow room for growth, for redemption, for forgiveness. It literally just seeks to kill and to squash that person. And I abhor, in the words of Lucasfilm for Gina's statement, I abhor cancel culture.
And we've all fallen short. And sure,
yes.
If we're talking about a serial killer or something, it just really serious.
But even they, in this country, everyone, guys, in America, you are innocent until what? Until proven guilty. So any across the board, cancel culture, you've got to give people their time.
But, we're living in a day and age of
It's the modern day stoning and the modern day witch trials. That's what we're watching.
And in particular, to get to the heart of the matter, if you're not, especially in Hollywood, in a media, if you do not fall on one side of the political aisle, it has become a witch hunt to, blame and accuse and take things out of context. And it's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is a lot going on. But so Gina finally gets to speak. So we just again wrote down a few things that we're going to cover this the way we kind of cover any episode. We're going to talk about, kind of walk through the interview of things that caught our attention and discuss it. So the first thing I will say, our initial thoughts of the interview, if you can say it as we always.
How many hoots do you give it?
I give this interview 5 hoots. Totally. I'm going to be real on that. But my initial thought is, and again, I already like Gina. I walked away from this just having a
liking
newfound
her more, a lot more.
Like her ability, she is so gracious in this interview. And whether or not you believe everything she's telling is the truth, that's for you to decide. Again, there's always, as people say, there's 3 sides to every story, yours, mine, and the truth. But regardless, she comes across so authentic, so just authentic and genuine, and there's kind of a humility there to a degree, and just gracious.
And something I really like she said, so oftentimes, once again, in the day of cancel culture, we see people coming out, whether it's YouTubers or people on Twitter even, or Hollywood, and they make these big apologies. And a lot of times they don't seem very genuine, probably because they know they didn't really even do anything that wrong.
Or you recently have like Justin Timberlake's apology where he doesn't actually really take responsibility. He blames the system, not himself.
Right. So they're these disingenuous apologies kind of manufactured by their publicist or something. And I appreciate the fact she's saying like, I think she's a very genuine person. Yes. Like that's what came across to me. And she's not about that because I don't really like to I don't think it's just not genuine to apologize for something that you don't mean. Yeah, you don't mean. And I respect that, And the other thing that I came away from this realizing is like, she is this incredibly strong woman, physically and mentally. But I also didn't realize, I think she's a very sensitive person. And I mean that
feels deeply.
I mean that in the best sense of the word. I think, I'm highly sensitive and I think we get a bad rap sometimes, but it's also the highly sensitive that usually, you do care if someone else is getting bullied. Like you don't like that. Like from the time you're a kid, like it bothers you. You can't stand injustices. And it's not just, I'm sensitive myself. Often you're sensitive to others as well. And I see that in her.
Yeah. So I just saw the graciousness that she has and the strength, this gentle strength. But then also, so the interview moves in, he very quickly, and pretty much it's just Gina talking. Ben Shapiro just does. And again, this really isn't even for anyone who maybe you're not a Shapiro fan. It's really not about him. Yeah. It's not even political. It's literally just her side of the story, but he happens to be the one allowing her to tell it.
Right.
So that's kind of what this interview's about. But they begin with, why she got fired and kind of the things that have happened on Twitter. And I will say this, words, I'm actually working in my PhD right now, and I'll never forget a professor saying to me, words will always fail. And what he meant by that is he said there's always a difficulty with words. Because words, especially in Twitter, when someone doesn't know you, you can't relay the full intent of your heart. And sometimes words can't even express what you really mean in your heart. They fail.
So let alone once you mentally start getting, I'm trying to make this make sense, but like you have a slant towards a person, like you already have preconceived what they are, you're going to take it a certain way where someone else is going to take it like, oh, I see what she was saying. I get what she meant.
Yes.
And so it's just very hard. That's kind of like over text today. Sometimes like somebody will do back a K and we'll be like, are they upset with me? Did I do something wrong? But, it's hard, like, over written words sometimes. I mean, short of it being like, you're stupid, like, obviously that's derogatory and that's not nice.
Yes, which is said a lot on Twitter, unfortunately. Yeah. But, so I want to bring up, the big thing, she's transphobic, she was claimed of, which if you really follow her, you're really stretching with the beep, bop, boop to make her transphobic. But, it's something I want to point out, that they get on in the interview, that Disney, after this incident, sent someone from their department, from the LGBTQ community, to have a talk with her. And after they talked with her, according to Gina in this interview, they reported back to Disney and said, we don't recommend you doing anything, and that we don't think she did anything wrong. So that is from that group of people who support, fully supportive, fully on board with that. And that was their take from the Twitter situation. And I think that's really important.
Which, and I think the whole thing with the beep, bop, boop from her explanation,
yes.
I kind of didn't need, I kind of already got it.
Yeah.
You kind of put two and two together. It was, once again, the mob mentality, like, this is what you're going to do, this is what you have to do. And that was kind of her response of like, I'm going to do whatever I want to do, like, you're able to do whatever, it's a free country, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like,
if you want to put pronouns in it, do it.
That's
but
great.
don't go at her and try to force her to do it. Just like, don't do anyone to do that. It doesn't help your cause, as she kind of points out.
And it wasn't coming, you know, from a place of hate or disdain. And just like I think so many of us, once that person, like Michelle was saying, sat down, and as she referenced, like, it is good to have eye contact,
yes,
look somebody in their face, and they walked away from that like, she is not any of these things. You know, I think so many times conservatives, it's like they get every ist and ick, is the way I put it, labeled on them. And if you'd sit down and have a conversation like she says about Pedro Pascal later on, we're all human. And, you know, we have that first and foremost in common. And I think, sadly, it's such a divided time. And if we really sat down with each other, we'd realize we have so much more in common than we do different, you know, as human beings.
Yeah.
And just because you're a certain political thing, it does not mean that you have hate in your heart for anyone.
Yes. And it's really time, you know, bringing up, it really is time for people to quit throwing blanket statements onto people.
You know what's
like,
kind of sad?
Hear people out. Like, you can't just assign something to someone. You don't know people from Twitter. Twitter's not the real world, guys. Like, quit judging that.
And sort of something that's sad to me is some of these words that, you know, carry very serious connotations.
Yes.
They're losing their meaning.
Yeah.
You know, if you get called a Nazi for 4 years, if you're on, you know, the unlike side of the political spectrum, or, you know, you're a racist, or you're all these things when you're not, and it's just making these very heavy words that are serious and are issues, it's making them empty words, sadly.
Yes. Well, and let's move back. So I think point one, the LGBTQ community said, we don't think you should do anything. But from that point on, she was told she was not going to be in any of the promotional stuff for Lucasfilm. Like, no, you're not going to be in it. And then they were going to have her sit there and talk to 40 people who were mad.
Like on a Zoom.
Yes. And I will say this. I witnessed, because we're on Twitter, I've watched people from Lucasfilm take cheap shots. Different authors, different people, writers, people like that, take cheap shots at Gina Carano. And it's kind of like Lucasfilm, and that this is directed at Kathleen Kennedy, who's the head of it. Get your crap together. Like, basically, like, you guys can't stand united if you've got this person bashing this person. I mean, that's just not good company. That's just not good publicity from Lucasfilm. It's just not, it's terrible. And
let's practice what we preach. And if we preach
tolerance
and inclusivity, let's do that.
Yeah, like, let's have tolerance and stuff. I mean, that was ridiculous that they allowed that to go on, and that was acceptable. Because she really was.
If we're anti-bullying, let's not bully.
Yeah, like, she gets at this. It's like she pretty much, and I watched that. Like, she's been bullied. And I know people.
So bad.
And it's funny, like, people want to say, like, no, she was bullied. Again, I'm going to take it back to what they said. Nothing was done wrong. If you believe what she said, that's what they said.
You know, take it from the source. Someone
Yes.
that is a part of this community, and that was there after meeting and having, as she put it, you know, a lovely conversation. That was what they got out of it.
Yes.
So make of that what you will.
So then they erase her character. I remember that when this happened, this was literally just like a month ago. They erased her out of the Mandalorian art and put Ahsoka, which was kind of the big red flag for a lot of us of like, are they going to fire her? What's going on? And the reason, you know, we would kind of wonder that is because, let's just be real. Everyone knows in Hollywood that conservatives just have to be quiet, because there's only one way that they like it. And I think they've proven that with Gina Carano, really. And they'll blame it on other things. We all know why.
And I think I will say, I think the reason maybe this struck a chord with so many people, like, we've seen this going on for a while now.
Yeah, for years.
For years. I mean, we know, but this was
Good example. Nicole Kidman got blackballed for years after she made a positive thing just about George Bush years ago. So, I mean, this is happening for a long time.
But this was so, I think it was like in our face.
Yeah.
You know, that someone literally lose their job, get fired over being a conservative in this case.
Yeah, and they will say it's because of this post, and they address the post. And what's funny, she's with Ben Shapiro, who's a Jewish person. And again, so that leads us into the double standard of within the show, and they bring it up, Pedro Pascal literally made a comparison to conservative views to Nazis, and that was fine. Where Gina does...
with an incorrect picture.
Yes.
Might I add?
Yes.
It was from 2010 in a Middle Eastern country, not in the USA, not at the border.
And then there was the second one with the hats and Nazism again. So that's accepted. And then meanwhile, Gina gets fired when she actually, her post, if you read it, doesn't even say which side is doing which. It just presents that, and she was fired for that, of basically a warning tale of don't go down this road. So you see the double standard right within it. But what I love, again, which is so endearing about Gina's character, and I think within both of them, something that I think people want to talk about unity. I think Gina lays out how we have unity. She goes on to just talk about how much she loves Pedro and how they realized that they had different political views, but they decided that their friendship would come above that and that they would see each other as human, number one. And I just think if we're going to have unity in this nation, we're going to have to come back to that. That yes, we can have even passionately different political opinions or views, but we have to see one another as human beings and treat one another accordingly.
And I think related to that post that I guess they used as the final straw, I would say, I would put this out there that the media and Twitter,
they twisted it very from the beginning.
They twisted it, but they are making it kind of like, it is cool to hate conservatives. And I think the point of her post was, because you do look back, and I don't mean to be controversial here, but I had even wondered, I know people were in general harsher back in the 40s and in the olden days and stuff, but how did it get to the point that people were just oh, they're rounding up and killing Jewish people? I didn't even realize, historically, that they had trained the people to hate Jews to where when this did come about, it was they're kind of brainwashed, oh, this is okay.
Yeah, and I mean, we're not here to get into...
And I'm not trying to make that comparison.
Well, no. Yeah, we're not here to even get into the comparison where she even says, I probably shouldn't have made that comparison.
Yeah.
She says that, but again, the only point...
Because I will agree, it's probably best to stay away from,
Well, and I will say this, I am, getting a PhD with history being one of the topics in it, and they talk about the Nazi comparison. Everything gets compared to Nazis.
Yeah.
So it's very common.
It's overused.
It's overused. It's unfortunate. But the point of this interview is the double standard that was shown, and one was fine, one was not fine. And so anyways, and again, is Lucasfilm, are they able to fire? Do they have the right to fire her? Sure, they have the right to fire her. Was it a smart move? I don't think so. Not when you've already really ticked off a huge sect of the fan base years ago with The Last Jedi, which it's a movie. I just don't really care either way about it. But my point is they just kind of began to get fans to come back with The Mandalorian, and then you fire Gina Carano for this. And
then you've ticked off half the country.
Yeah, so. It wasn't a really good PR move, I don't think. We'll see. I don't think it was very smart.
And when I say it, probably over half the country, because you've got your classical liberals that,
just like freedom of speech.
Yeah, that's what, the hippie movement, all that, that's what they were all about. It's there's kind of sadly not a place for them anymore because that's not what they're about in life. It's just kind of do you, as long as you're not hurting anybody else.
Yeah, so there's a double standard, but I'm just going back to it. Quotes that I like. She said, "Don't try to ruin my life with lies when your life can be ruined with the truth." And I think we've seen, with Hollywood, I want to talk about this too, that she brings up. She brings up going to a barbecue at a person's house in Los Angeles. And he was whispering to her about how he agreed with her.
In a backyard.
Yeah, and she just said, "Why are you whispering? It's your own house." And anytime there is an environment that is nurtured in a place of silence, you better bet that abuse is taking place. And don't think for a second Harry Weinstein was the first. nor will he ever be the last when
Right.
this type of silencing is going on and that type of
He
spirit.
just kind of became the poster child.
He did.
The sacrificial lamb, which, I mean, he needed to go away.
Yeah,
but,
he wasn't a good guy.
but let's be honest, that stuff's been going on since the beginning of Hollywood.
Yep, and I doubt it stopped.
Right.
So and not just with women. with
Yeah.
It's been across the board. But so that's just really sad that Hollywood is in a place, or even Ben Shapiro brings up how he knows people of power who can't speak because they know they would lose their job. And again, I just want to ask, is that tolerance? No, that's not tolerance. When only one view is allowed, that's not a tolerant or inclusive place. And that really shouldn't be the case in America.
And especially, and I would implore you to really, me or Michelle, sit down with people with different views and judge for yourself. Are we hateful? Ist and icks of everything in the world. I think if you really talk to us face to face, like she said, you'd find that we are very much not. And I have a fairly open mind, I would say.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of, Natalie, do you have any closing thoughts on anything Gina said?
Another quote I liked, you need to understand when love is no longer being served at the table, you need to know when to leave.
Yes.
And I just think she's kind of going to start, I think Gina is a true champion in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
My hat's off to her. It almost makes me emotional.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, she's inspiring to people to not bow down,
to not be silenced.
Yeah.
Not bow down, like you said. And there's just so much misunderstanding today. And I think what she was saying, which I really loved, is actual unity. That, like we said, there's so much talk about unity. We need actual unity, not this fake unity that there's only unity if you agree with a certain side.
Yes, because unity, if it's based on always agreeing, we're never going to have it. You're just not going to. You're not going to have it within a family, let alone within a nation.
You're not going to have it within the same political party.
Yeah, I mean,
we're
you're
all
not.
individuals.
Yes.
I always say don't put people in a box. Don't assume because someone is this, they're this, and this. We all have different views on so many different things.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just... It is what it is, but I thought that was too, and she said, I'm about love and true diversity, and again, I just say this, one, love does no harm, so people who are seeking to harm other people, that's not love, but, secondly, true diversity, there's so much talk about diversity in Hollywood, but there's zero diversity of thought allowed, and that's not true diversity, when only one way of doing things is accepted or allowed. That's just not diversity. And Hollywood would do better. They would make more money if they would actually allow some diversity, like they really would. And it's unfortunate, but kind of last thing I'll say is it seems with Lucasfilm and under Kathleen Kennedy that the force is female isn't totally true. I guess maybe the force is lefty female.
Only
that may be the better slogan from now on, because you had a very
the force is woke.
You had a very strong, caring, loving female that even people of different political views, Pedro Pascal seemed to really appreciate and like as a friend. That they just weren't willing to allow, and of course they blame it on something, but. They even addressed that, how she knew they were seeking to fire her for a long time. And you could say, well, why did she run her mouth? Why did she keep going? I think certain personalities, Gina's a fighter, quite literally. And I just don't think her personality was just going to just be like, okay, I'll go into silence and submission now. I just don't think she was going to do that. And I think she knew the cost. And unfortunately for us as a Star Wars fan, she was fired. But I think she has, I hope she does well with this movie. And I for the record, just know that this movie, no matter how it turns out, the critics have already determined
it's going to be awful.
It's sitting at a 5 on Rotten Tomatoes right now before it's even been written. So just kind of know that going into it. But, I'm excited for Gina as she kind of turns this page. And I hope it opens the doors for other people as they kind of talk about.
And I love the phrase, even on one of the clips from the interview, the join the rebellion. I mean, that's kind of what it feels like sometimes, to be different or to be what people hate today, which is ironic because, you're always accused of hating people, and really that's not the case for most of us. But subject to a lot of hate. So
yeah, well, so that is kind of our discussion on Gina Carano's interview with Ben Shapiro, her first time speaking. And again, as a Gina Carano fan, and a Star Wars fan, it was disappointing. Of course, Lucasfilm has the right to do that. They have the right. It just, everyone sees the double standard at this point. And that's frustrating to, half the country.
Well, and one other thing I wanted to say really quick. Even, it's not just the actors and actresses. Like, it got brought up in the interview, which I think, we kind of know is true. But
yeah, all the people who work on it.
All the people that make the show possible. Maybe say, so maybe half of them are conservative, and they can't ever open their mouth or put anything or like anything because, or listen to the wrong podcast because that could get them fired. And it's not quite so easy for them to just, in that industry, to go find another job, in their field.
Yeah.
So it's just, we're kind of getting to a scary place.
Yeah,
is kind of what's
it
alarming.
is. And again, I think with even what Gina talks about, we have to begin to see people as humans and not just a political side of the spectrum. So that is it for this episode of Force Levite Entertainment. A different episode, but still covering something. And again, it was kind of, we try on this channel to stay out of politics because entertainment should be an escape from politics. Yes. But when politics literally collide within our realm of entertainment discussion, we're not going to be shy from addressing it either when that does happen. I wish that never happened. I wish it happened less and less. But if it does, we will address it. But that is it. And remember, as always, to be a force of light. All right. Yes. Bye, guys.
Bye.